Hi everyone, it's Kristen. So today is Dazzler 8, and this is a pretty dramatic cover. So, of course, it had to happen that Harry and Lance, his assistant, are trying to figure out how in the world does Dazzler create these light shows. So, this is what they're contemplating right there. And Dazzler is attempting to make dinner for Paul, her boyfriend doctor. But she's not a good cook and it doesn't work. And she gets a call from Harry demanding that she come into the studio, demanding that she come see him in his office. And so she apologizes to Paul and rushes out over to his office. So basically, they're like, how do you make how do you make the light show in your act? And Dazzler says, I can't tell you. It's a professional secret. And Harry's like, well, if you want me to be your manager, you better tell me. And she's like, well, fine then. I'm leaving because, of course, she's worried that when she used her powers in Dazzler 6 to stop that robbery, and people saw, they called her a mutant, mutant freak. They were afraid of her. They wanted to lynch her. So she's not she doesn't think that's a good idea for anyone to know that she's immune. So she doesn't even trust Harry to tell him because she just doesn't know what's going to happen. So Lance is watching another one of Harry's acts, and when all of a sudden the enforcers, Ox, Montana, and Fancy Dan break in, Ox, self-explanatory. He's really strong. Montana, he has this rope, this that he basically controls, kind of like it's alive. And Fancy Dan, he is like a martial artist, and he's really fast. So they're looking for Harry, but Harry's not there. So they're basically saying send Harry a message from TechMaster. And it's like, oh no, who's TechMaster? Well, even Harry says, oh no, TechMaster, oh no. So he knows who that is, but of course we don't know who that is yet. So we see the other singer that Harry has in, one of the acts. She's comforting Lance, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, you were so brave." Although he's not really. Lance, he runs if possible. So then the next page, we find out who Tech Master is. He had hired the enforcers to, basically terrorize Harry. And we see that he takes off his gloves and his hands are basically machine parts, and his face, it doesn't look normal. So Dazzler's eating the leftovers of the dinner she attempted to make for Paul, which is not good. And Harry, he knocks on the door, he bursts in, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, they'll never find me here." And Dazzler's like, "What's wrong? What's going on?" And Harry's like, "It's the Tech Master. He's after me." So Harry explains what happened. So he was a couple years ago. He was managing um, this disco called Dreamland Disco. It was in Queens. And for New Year's Eve, there was this huge party, and even all of Manhattan's elite came because they thought it would be fun, to come to this quaint little, place and, see how the other half lives, so to speak. And so his lighting and electronics expert, um, Billy Blitzer, who called himself the Tech Master, he was handsome and, pretty much almost as famous as his famous clients were. So for this New Year's Eve show, he told Harry about this special effect he's been working on. He said, I have come up with a way to project lightning and I think it will be, a great effect. I think we should use it. But it's never been tested, so Harry's like, no, that's not a good idea. No, I just no, I don't think we should do that. You said it hasn't even been tested yet, so no, we shouldn't do it. So Billy ignores Harry and does it anyway. At midnight, lightning shoots across the ceiling of the disco. And unfortunately, though, because it's only supposed to run across the ceiling, it's not supposed to like go everywhere because, of course, lightning is dangerous. Unfortunately, it hits one guy and kills him. It, you know, all these stray lightning bolts all of a sudden go everywhere. Hits the room, causes fires to break out. Billy realizes the shut-off switch, has been short-circuited, and he thinks that Harry did it to sabotage him on purpose. And one lightning bolt comes right through the control room and hits Billy, and it disfigures his face, and they have to amputate his hands. I guess maybe because his hands, I'm not sure why they had to amputate his hands, but maybe because they were like on the control panel and it, caused an even greater electrical surge. I don't know. But anyway, they had to amputate his hands. And even though in the past few years he's recovered enough to build himself a set of, hands using sophisticated technology, he's also opened up his own electronics consulting firm and done, pretty successful. But apparently, he's never stopped blaming Harry for what happened. So he sent the enforcers and he sent the enforcers after him. And unfortunately, they followed him to Dazzler's apartment. And what happens, Montana grabs Dazzler with his rope, like ties her up, and Ox throws her on the couch, and Ox, rips out the phone, crushes it, and Dazzler's like, oh my gosh, that could be me, so she just kind of sits there in shock, and they take, Harry away. And then Dazzler realizes, I have to do something. So she realizes, well, obviously she can't use the phone in her room, her apartment, because it's been crushed. So she goes down to, a payphone and uses that and calls the police and says the enforcers have taken Harry Osgood to the Dreamland Disco. And they're like, are you crazy? It's now a grocery store. There's no reason why they would take him there. And they're telling her, it's fine, just sit tight. And she's like, forget this. So she calls Lance. I don't know why she keeps calling Lance or thinking he'll help, because he's basically a coward. So she gets his recording. So she goes to the supermarket where the Dreamland Disco used to be because it completely burned down. I mean, in the fire, Harry said that a lot of people died, and yeah, it was a huge, huge tragedy. So she goes to the site where now the supermarket has stood, and she tells, the cab driver, don't wait for me, because that having a cab linger outside of the, supermarket would look weird considering it's closed right now. So she goes in and, basically tells, is found out by the goons, not the enforcers, because they have goons working for them too. Found out, and she immediately gets caught, and they, put her in there with Harry, and she goes for she sees there's the speaker system, so she goes for it, turns it on, uses the music to dazzle them, runs away, thinking, okay, well, until, until TechMaster gets there, until Billy gets there, they're not going to do anything to Harry, because pretty much that's the whole reason why they kidnapped him, is for TechMaster. So she didn't see him there, so she knows he's okay. So she's trying to hopefully escape and get help. Again, she says Lance. which, like I said, I don't know why she keeps thinking Lance is like gonna save them because he's a kind of a coward. And one of the goons said, it's funny. Wonder who turned the music on. And the other guy says, maybe the enforcers just like this tune. You light up my life. A nod to, Dazzler and her light powers. So she skates past the enforcer. She always has her roller skates with her, like the skates that snap onto boots or something. Always has them with her, apparently. That's part of her persona, you know. She has to have roller skates from this time. So she skates past them, uses her powers to dazzle them. Um, skate uses a new effect, a strobe light, to make this guy dizzy, and she gathers up for one big blast and jumps over all these other goons. And unfortunately, though, Ox grabs her and she's caught. Oh, and like I said, she says go for it at least once every comic book, like when she's using her powers. And like I said, just makes me think of Spider Friends. Spider Friends, go for it. They say that in every cartoon. So that's what it makes me think of. Of course, that was the 80s. This was the 80s, so And then Lance, he's in his apartment with that girl from earlier, and he's like, "Oh, I have a message. I should check in." She's like, "Oh, it can wait till tomorrow." And he's like, "Yeah, it can wait till tomorrow, or it can wait till later." So Ox has her. She tries a laser bolt on him. Fancy Dan, who is fast martial arts, punches her. She's dazed. Um, Ox grabs her again. He's like, I'm going to mess up that face. And then she hears music still wafting through. The Impossible Dream, they mentioned that specifically. So she uses her powers once again to dazzle them and escape. And she knees them, and they are knocked out, apparently. And then she, grabs a can of peas, and the Ox is like, huh, what are you going to do with a can of peas? She's like, no, I know this can't hurt you, but I got an even better idea. So the can of peas sets off the alarm, which gives her a lot of sound to use. So she uses it to finally knock Ox unconscious. Harry basically has seen all of this, and because he was able to free himself since everyone left, and TechMaster goes by and sees that pretty much everything's in disarray. The goons are like knocked out, and he's like, you know, another day, Osborne, another day. So basically, they go to the police and they're like, you're telling me that everybody was fighting amongst themselves and knocked themselves out and set off the alarm. And, Allison and Harry are like, yeah, that's what happened. Sure. Yeah, exactly. And they're like, well, okay, whatever. Because they caught the enforcers, which actually, Allison earlier in this issue mentioned that she's heard of them and saw that they were fighting Spider-Man. So I can't remember when they first appeared. Was it in the Spider-Man comic? I think it was, but not positive. I'll have to look. Yeah, I'll have to see if I can remember. So basically, Harry says, hey, I saw what you did. Like, I know how you create your light shows now. And Allison says, you have to promise me that you won't say anything. You won't tell anyone. He's like, that I'm a mutant. And he's like, why? That would be, a great gimmick. People might like you even more. And she says, no, Harry, no, I don't think so. I can't, can I trust you with this secret? And he's like, of course. Of course you can. And Lance comes running in like, oh my gosh, Harry, Allison. Like, I'm here to rescue you, but it's way too late. So anyway, Harry tells, Lance to lay off. that they don't need to know Allison's secret. He also pays for the damage to Allison's apartment. And as she was leaving, this guy with the gun is like, "Hey, I have a friend that I would like you to meet." And it's Mr. Meeker. This is the guy that's been following her all this time. So basically, he's like, "I have a friend that I'd like you to meet, who's a big fan of yours, but basically I have a gun, so you don't have a choice." And he also says, "I have these specialized polarized sunglasses that will protect me from your dazzle burst." So she's like, "How do these people know that I have these powers? Like, how'd they know that? Where'd they get these sunglasses?" And that's where the next issue leads into, or this issue leads into the next issue. So I hope you will join me for that, and I've been really enjoying these Dazzler issues. I mean, they're just fun. I mean, they're from, of course, the 80s, early 80s, but they're just fun. I mean, just seeing Dazzler in all these different situations and just introducing these new characters, because TechMaster, this is his first appearance, and okay, well, spoiler alert. He makes an appearance in one issue of Dazzler later, and that's pretty much it. So, so I feel like they make a lot of new characters up for, the Dazzler series, and they also bring in popular characters. So I think that's cool. I think that's a fun mix of storytelling. So I hope you will join me for the next issue when we find out who Mr. Meeker is and what he wants with Dazzler. Until then, bye.